Okay, dear students, good evening. How are you? Are you clear? My students, हम लोग भक्ति मूवमेंट जैसे वी हैव स्टार्टेड अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक भक्ति मूवमेंट and a number of questions are awaiting today to be answered by us. I will expect some question to be answered by you people. And yesterday I have given you some question and I will discuss this question with you. Today I will discuss a lot of model answers as well. And I have to discuss about certain aspect of Bhaktism as well. Yesterday I have made you clear about Nirguna Bhakti, Saguna Bhakti. I think for the first time you are going to hear the lecture. It is very difficult to develop a conceptual clarity, but you people are smart enough to understand the things. तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि आप लोगों ने कल निर्गुणा भक्ति, सगुणा भक्ति, भक्ति के डिफरेंट एस्पेक्ट्स के फर्क को आप समझ गए होंगे. फिर मैं एक बार आज थोड़ा रिन्यू कर दूंगा उसको ताकि आपको प्रॉब्लम ना हो. So let us start with the 5 MCQ questions first, then we have to move further. Question number 1. On the composition of which of the following saints we can underline the influence of or the impact of mysticism? कल मैंने आपको mysticism बताया था. I have just made you clear कि what is mysticism. Today you have to find out that there are the 3 scholars. One is the Sufi scholar, Malik Muhammad Jaisi, and Mirabai and Nanak. So these are the scholars, and you have to find out on the writing of which scholar you find the element of mysticism. It is quite a challenging and difficult question, but you people are smart enough to answer the question. Choice A 1 and 2 only, choice B 2 and 3 only, choice C 1 and 3 only, choice D 1, 2 and 3. Be fast.
All are C.
All are C. Yes, good. And you have left Mirabai because she believes in Saguna Bhakti. Saguna Bhakti means she was worshipping Lord Krishna in human form. And if Lord Krishna is in human form, how can you imagine that there is mysticism? For mysticism, there should be the absence of an idol. There should be absence of a figure, the absence of a statue. And then there should be the intensity of love for someone who is shapeless. Then mysticism. But Lord Krishna is already having a shape. So you are right, my friends. But in this question, I didn't have the hope कि you people will answer this question. मुझे लग रहा था 100% कि तुम लोग इसको गलत कर जाओगे, मीराबाई को भी सिलेक्ट कर लोगे, लेकिन बहुत स्मार्ट आंसर किया. क्वेश्चन नंबर 2. What is the difference between Nirguna and Saguna Bhakti? 1. Nirguna Bhakti believes in a formless God, while Saguna Bhakti believes in temples and idol worship. 2. Nirguna Bhakti rejects caste division, whereas Saguna Bhakti made a compromise with the caste system. 3. Nirguna Bhakti believes in the supremacy of knowledge, while Saguna Bhakti denied efficacy of knowledge. Ab, which of the statements are correct? My students, here also you need to be slightly careful and answer the question. I myself is curious ki what is the result.
B.
Yes, good. Yes, really commendable. देखो, एक कहावत है कि अगर दिल से कोशिश की जाए तो जरूर सफलता मिलती है. मेरी पूरी कोशिश रही कि आप में कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी आ जाए, आ ही गई. मतलब आप इसमें नहीं फंसे पॉइंट नंबर 3 में, क्योंकि एफिकेसी ऑफ, अब सुप्रीमेसी ऑफ नॉलेज, जब जहां नॉलेज की सुप्रीमेसी होगी वहां भक्तिज्म का तो गुंजाइश ही नहीं होगी. अब शंकराचार्य कहते हैं हम ब्रह्मस्मि, सो देयर यू विल फाइंड सम सॉर्ट ऑफ a boastful claim, a pride, a sense of you can say arrogance. I am Brahma. So there is no scope for bhaktism. So excessive knowledge is detrimental to bhaktism. And Saguna Bhakti denied efficacy of knowledge. No bhakta can deny the efficacy of knowledge. Some knowledge is essential even for bhaktism. Some quantity of knowledge is essential. If someone is making the claim that knowledge is ineffective, even Ramanuj has has accepted this thing. Knowledge is essential, but more than knowledge, it is God's grace which is essential. He does not deny the efficacy of knowledge, even Ramanuj. Good. बहुत अच्छा आंसर किया आपने. Question number 3. Which of the following are correct about Nirguna Bhakti? It opposed temples and idol worship. It rejected caste system. 3rd, it opposed child marriage and advocated widow remarriage. Be fast. Be fast, my friends. क्या हो रहा है?
No.
Yeah?
Yeah. No, B.
Choice number B. Yes, good, good. This is wrong. Point number 3rd. Basically, he was a saint. He was not an out social reformer. Social reforms are the byproduct of his spiritual activities, and divine activities, spiritual activities. It was just the byproduct. It does not mean that they were opposed to, you can say, spiritual. That is, we cannot accept this thing. So here point number B is the correct answer. You are 100% correct. Question number 4. Which of the following features were associated with Maharashtra Dharma? Point 1. It undermined caste system, Maharashtra Dharma. Okay. Point 2. It was associated with the composition of Abhangas. Point number 3, it believed formless God. So there are 3 statements about Maharashtra Dharma. मतलब इसने कास्ट सिस्टम को अंडरमाइन किया, इसने अभंगों की रचना की महाराष्ट्र धर्म ने, और ये मतलब निराकार ईश्वर में विश्वास करता है. 3 स्टेटमेंट.
C.
What?
C, sir.
C is the answer. Good. Good. C is the correct answer. You have done well. Good. C. Question number 5. Which of the following language, language को हटाना था, केवल लिटरेचर की बात थी. Which of the following literature are promoted by Bhakti movement? Point 1 Persian, point 2 Hindi, point 3 Bengali, point 4 Marathi. Which of the above statements are correct? मतलब आपको पता ये करना है कि भक्ति मूवमेंट ने अपने आप को किस लैंग्वेज में एक्सप्रेस किया है.
C, sir.
C, yes, 2, 3 and 4. Quite commendable. You have given the correct answer 5 out of 5. Quite commendable, बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म किया. कम से कम 2 क्वेश्चन मुझे गलत होने की संभावना लग रही थी, लेकिन आपने 5 में आउट ऑफ 5 करके आपने बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म किया. क्वाइट पेज वर्दी. अब हम लोग भक्ति मूवमेंट में जहां रुके पड़े थे वहीं चलते हैं. We are just moving to Bhaktism now. Limitations of Nirguna Bhakti. Yesterday I have made you clear. Social reformers. Nanak Kabir. Throw light on the content of Nirguna Bhakti, special reference to Kabir and Nanak. I have made you clear. How did the arrival of Bhakti from South India influence and shape the religious practices in the northern regions of India? My friends, yesterday I have discussed about the evolution of Bhaktism in South India. It was the largest cultural movement in India. Bhaktism was the largest cultural movement in India. First of all, we have to develop a mindset. Ki how did it start from South India, Alwar and Nanar saints? Then how did they move up to 12th century? and there was the advent of Acharyas. How did Acharyas transform the basic nature of Bhaktism? Then up to 12th century, when Ramanuj has prepared the basis for Bhaktism, so then Bhakti Drabir Upje Layo Ramanand. So Ramanand carried Bhaktism to North India. Although Bhaktism stayed for some time in Maharashtra, and then you are going to observe Maharashtra Dharma, you know. It is true. But then Ramanand just brought Bhaktism to North India. So Ramanand was having two contributions to Bhaktism. Here I have to make you clear that Ramanand made two important contributions to Bhaktism. The one contribution of Ramanand was that he popularized the Rama sect in North India. He popularized Rama sect in North India, Ramanand, first of all. And second one, you can say that Ramanand, while he was coming from the Brahmanic background, he belonged to a Brahmanic root, but still Ramanand on the caste front, Ramanand was going to be too much liberal. कास्ट फ्रंट पर जो रामानंद थे वो बहुत लिबरल थे, जो रामानंद थे, सो ही वॉज टू मच लिबरल ऑन द कास्ट फ्रंट, यू नो. कास्ट फ्रंट. So here I have to make you clear, you know. Yes, is there any question?
Yes, sir. Please explain 4.1. Why not option 3? Formless God. Naveen Kumar पूछ रहे हैं.
Who? In the question number?
4.1. Why not option 3? Formless God.
My students, who has Naveen Kumar, why not 4.1? You know, it is due to the fact because in Maharashtra Dharma, you are just taking here in the Maharashtra Dharma. In Maharashtra Dharma, there was not formless God, Naveen. There was Vithoba, worship of Vithoba. That was reincarnation of Lord Krishna. Pandharpur was the center of Vithoba cult, Pandharpur. And Pandharpur was situated in Maharashtra. There was the temple cult, Pandharpur. So that's why, Naveen, I think your question has been answered. In order to entangle you in this question, I have consciously placed here formless God. But if you are going to accept as the formless God, it means you are going to reject the idol worship which was promoted by the worship of Vithoba, the cult of Vithoba at Pandharpur. So that is the cause.
धन्यानेश्वर मौली पूछ रहे हैं.
Who?
धन्यानेश्वर मौली.
Acha, Dhananeshwar Mauli. Yes.
Sir, if the Vithoba is an incarnation of Krishna, then can it be considered as Saguna Bhakti?
Yes. It was Saguna Bhakti, not formless God. Okay? Yes.
Rahul पूछ रहे is Nayanar and Alwar were sharply critical of the Buddhist and Jains.
Yes. Rahul, Alwar and Nayanar saints were the critic of and critical. They were having a critical, they were having some different ideas and having the negative ideas about Buddhism and Jainism.
Kumar is asking, sir, what are the two important factors of Nath Panth?
One is the social equality and rejection of caste division, and second one was of the Nath Panth was it believes in a formless God, not idol worship, not temple cult, not priest class, the established priest class like Brahmins, you know, or supremacy of Brahmins. Now let us move further. How did the arrival of Bhakti from South India? So about Bhaktism, I have just informed you. It started from 12th, you can say Alwar, Nayanar saints. So I have just mentioned about that. It started from Alwar, Nayanar saints, then up to 12th century Ramanuj. Then in North India, two forms, Nirguna Bhakti, Saguna Bhakti. What is the specificity of Nirguna Bhakti? How did the idea of mysticism emerge in Nirguna Bhakti? How did Kabir and Nanak make a contribution to Bhaktism, And what was the speciality of the so-called Nirguna Bhakti? How did it make a contribution? Then what is Saguna Bhakti? How did Saguna Bhakti made a contribution here? So I have just clarified all these aspects, So, Nirguna Bhakti, Hindi language, Nanak Punjabi language, then you are coming to this Saguna Bhakti, Rama Bhakti, Audhi language, Krishna Bhakti, Gujarati language, Rajasthani language, Braj Bhasha, Asamiya, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Bengali language. So and in Maharashtra, Dhan Marathi language, in South India, Tamil language. So in this so many languages, and literature, not simply language, but language in the form of literature. So Bhakti movement is supposed to be the largest cultural movement in India. So for tomorrow, I am giving you some homework. You people have to try this question. This question you people have to answer. Ki Bhakti movement was largest cultural movement in India. In India, and it reflected multiple trends. Elaborate. Now you people have to answer this question 150 words. Will you answer this question? Please inform me. Will you need any help?
Voice issue actually.
Yeah?
All of they are facing voice issue.
अरे वॉइस तुम वॉइस इशू फेस कर रहे हो?
सुनाई दे रहा है काम तो बोलोगे।
अंकुर काम से लगाओ ये। Hello?
Okay.
So my students, my question is, I have given this question to you. Will you people try this question?
Yes. Need some help.
Need some help. My students, you will try this question in this way. कि भक्ति मूवमेंट was a movement. भक्ति मूवमेंट was a movement, a popular movement. पॉपुलर मूवमेंट हमेशा नहीं है. भक्ति मूवमेंट was a cultural movement which was having a time span, which was having a time span, which was having a time span for nearly 1,000 years, and it spread to the different regions of India. So it was truly having an all India character. An all India character. That is simply an introduction. Various trends were visible. In this movement. You find here the term various trends were visible in this movement, and then you have to mention in South India it started with the Alwar and Nanar saints. Then in one and two line, then Acharyas transformed the movement into an elitist movement, Then it moved towards North India, but in Maharashtra it has taken a different form, and you will just write one and two line on Maharashtra Dharma. Then you will just move to North India. In North India, it manifested itself in the two dominant forms, Nirguna Bhakti and Saguna Bhakti. And then you will mention about certain Nirguna Bhakti and then Saguna Bhakti. So I think your question would be answered, Your question would be answered, Okay? Will you answer this question? Try this question now. Is this help sufficient? Is this help sufficient, my friends? Please make your stand clear. Okay?
It neglected multiple trends, not clear.
It reflected, not neglected, reflected.
Multiple trends.
Multiple trends. So Alwar and Nanar saint is the one trend. Acharya is the second trend. Maharashtra Dharma is the third trend. Nirguna Bhakti is the fourth trend. Saguna Bhakti is the fifth trend. So trends are clear. Yesterday I have given you some question. Have you tried this question? Yesterday, this one. Evaluate the nature of Bhakti literature and its contribution to Indian culture. Have you tried this question? Please reply my question fastly, because you are having the dearth of time, my students, and we have to do a lot of works. What is the situation, Mr. Ankur?
Yes, sir. Kuch maximum yes, sir. Kuch no.
Oh, today, Mr. Ankur, how this question will move to the students now? Because you have added this question today.
I will send it tomorrow, sir.
Tomorrow you will send this question. Evaluate the nature of the Bhakti literature and its contribution to Indian culture, 2021. Here is the model answer. The Bhakti movement, spanning approximately 1400 years, stands as the largest cultural movement in India with a profound impact on various aspects of society. Okay? Associated Bhakti saints developed at tourist places for their devotees. Contribution of Bhakti literature, that is simply a diagram. Nature of Bhakti literature. This movement has given rise to an extensive literature encompassing diverse languages and expressing the voices of saints from both the northern and southern regions. It includes the perspective of Nirguna and Saguna saints as well as male and female saints, reflecting its pluralistic nature. Contribution of Bhakti literature to Indian culture. 1. Traditionally, the language of religious discourse in Indian culture was Sanskrit. However, the Bhakti movement established regional languages as mediums of expression. 2. It brought spiritual experiences to the homes of common people by utilizing vernacular languages. For example, the enduring popularity of the story of the Ramayana can be attributed to its retelling in the voices of Tulsi rather than Valmiki. 3rd, the movement fostered the development of regional literature throughout India. Bhakti literature has significantly influenced contemporary Indian music traditions such as Carnatic and Hindustani music. Additionally, it served as a vehicle for social protest challenging prevalent religious and societal injustices. That is the simple, but if you people will just like, even here I can help you to write the question. Here you can Bhakti movement was having a deep relationship, having a close relationship with the common people, So medium of devotional poetry was essentially the local and popular dialects. So in one sense, Bhakti movement proved the golden age for vernacular literature. Abhi we started here. Question is, evaluate the nature of Bhakti literature and its contribution to Indian culture. If we explore vernacular literature or Bhakti literature, we can very well explain its extent and cultural expression. Is its extent and cultural expression, My friends, up you people have to underline the things and you have to find it out. Now you will talk about different languages. Start from Tamil language in Alvar, Tamil literature, Prabandham, etc. in Alvar and Nayanar sense, So this Tamil literature talks about the local music, local dance, as well as temple cult, or you can say the temple construction. So about the local, you can say culture, you will getting information from Tamil literature, that is from Alvar and Nayanar sense. Then you are coming here, so you find Maharashtra Dharma, so Marathi literature. Marathi literature, how did it reflected the, you can say, the, how did it literature the life of the common people, the Marathi Avhangas, you will talk about Avhangas, the, you can say the local and you can say the very superb quality of local literature, the Marathi literature, that in the form of Avhangas, Eknath Tukaram, etc. Then you will mention about, in you are just moving to north, so you will even talk about Rama Bhakti Audhi. Audhi language mentioned here, Ramcharitmanas. Ramcharitmanas.
No.
Ramcharitmanas. So Ramcharitmanas, that is, you can say कि this Ramcharitmanas reflected here. Actually you will talk about the Avdhi literature, Avdhi language, Avdhi literature, you can say. What language? Better to write Avdhi literature. So it talks about Ramcharitmanas, that is, Tulsidas, the composition of Tulsidas, Nabhadas, etc. So Tulsidas, that was the reflected, if the story of Ramayana, which has been spread to Southeast Asia, so that was, that is preserved in the language of Tulsi, not in the language of Valmiki originally. मतलब आज जो अगर रामायण की कथा जीवित है भारत में और भारत से बाहर, तो तुलसी की वाणी में, तुलसी की भाषा में, तुलसी ने इसको पॉपुलराइज किया। वाल्मीकि का तो संस्कृत भाषा में थी, तो लोगों तक वो नहीं पहुंच पाई, कॉमन पीपल तक। तुलसी ने उसको कॉमन पीपल तक पहुंचाया। पॉइंट नंबर, अब वहां पर अवधि के बाद गुजराती नरसिंह मेहता दे दो, राजस्थानी मीराबाई दो, फिर नॉर्थ इंडिया में आओ तो ब्रज भाषा बल्लवाचार्य, अष्टछाप के पोएट्स, सूरदास, सूरसागर। देन कम टू बंगाल, चैतन्य महाप्रभु, that is the Sankirtana, that is the new form of art, new form of music he spread. Sankirtana, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The emotional aspect of Bhaktism was highlighted. Then you are moving to Assam, Assamese language, Shankar Deva. So Assamese literature, Shankar Deva. तो एक कैसी गोल्डन एज ऑफ वर्नाकुलर लिटरेचर है, उसको तुमको प्रूव कर देना है, और कैसे इसे कहाँ इससे और आर्ट या कल्चर का रिफ्लेक्शन मिल रहा है, उसको बताना है। तो बेसिकली देखो, यूपीएससी में या कोई भी कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम में बच्चे, देयर इज नो सब्स्टिट्यूट फॉर बीइंग अ थिंकिंग क्रिएचर। जब तक आप थिंकिंग क्रिएचर नहीं बनोगे, उसका कोई सब्स्टिट्यूट नहीं होगा। दैट इज इसेंशियल, एंड यू पीपल हैव टू एक्चुअली गिव emphasis over this factor,
So Rahul, can we introduce like Bhakti movement was socio-religious movement of medieval period?
Yes, definitely. Rahul, socio-religious movement of the Bhakti movement was definitely Kabir Nanak. He was a reformist, in one sense. Shaguna Bhakti or Vaishnava Bhakti. I have studied this aspect, I have discussed with you. Dance form. Contribution of women in the Bhakti movement, that is the essential topic. You people are supposed to go through it first. The Saguna Bhakti women saints emerged from time to time, exerting their influence on the Bhakti movement. based on devotional literature, it is estimated that there were approximately 80 female saints, total 80 female saints, And the earliest information we have is about Alwar Saint Andal. She was an Alwar saint. And then in northern Kashmir, a female saint named Lal Ded held a special influence. Lal Ded. She was follower of Saivism, you can say. She had interactions with Nuruddin. Nuruddin was he was a Sufi saint. But Lal Ded was a spiritual teacher of Nuruddin. Nuruddin was the founder of the Rishi sect in Kashmir, a Sufi sect. But Lal Ded was her teacher, a spiritual teacher, you can say. Another name for Lal Ded was Laleshwari. She had interactions with Nuruddin, a saint belonging to the Rishi Sufi order. Similarly, Mahadevi Akka, a female saint from Veerashaiva sect in Karnataka. From Veerashaiva sect, Karnataka is Mahadevi Akka. Defied societal norms by walking naked on the open road with her hair covering her body, challenging the honor expected of the royal family. When she was from royal family, but she revolted against the patriarchy. The patriarchy means the male-dominated society. And she walked out of her palace while completely naked. Simply hair was covering her body. And she was walking out of the palace. So she dared to do so. It was a revolt against the drudgery of domestic life and women's exploitation, and male-dominated society. So it was a symbolic of the revolt of women against the patriarchy. Lastly, discussion of women saints would be incomplete without mentioning Mirabai. Despite being a daughter-in-law of the Sisodiya dynasty in Mewar, Meera openly accepted Krishna as her husband, and disregarding the expectations of the royal family, her devotional songs known as Meera Bhakti songs have become a unique musical heritage. You should know. And contribution, women saints challenged the male-dominated feudal society by breaking social and familiar norms. Their actions during the medieval period symbolized social rebellion and limitations. Their resistance against the male-dominated feudal society remained personal and individualistic. Rather than engaging in open struggle, they sought refuge in religion and spirituality. Actually, my students, here I have to inform you that actually when the women saints say they revolted against the male-dominated society, so it was in one sense a reaction against Brahmanic patriarchy established by the Varnashram Dharma. It is true. It was also, you can say, a revolt against feudal norms. But simultaneously, you people have to be clear about the fact that after all, and in spite of this factor, the women rebels could not bring an alternative social model. She was not having any clear-cut idea, or she didn't, you can say, form any organization, and she could not do the organized movement. Their reaction against the male-dominated society was simply timely and temporary. It could not take the form of a permanent movement or could not form a society. So it was having some limitations as well. So both the points have been highlighted here. Okay. About the female saints, Now my students, there is certain questions here. It was a question in 2012. It was really an interesting question. The flute playing Krishna theme is very popular in Indian art discuss. मतलब एक बार क्वेश्चन पूछा था कि बांसुरी वादक कृष्ण भारतीय संस्कृति के केंद्र में रहे हैं, वर्णन डिस्कस, इस पर विवेचन कीजिए. अब देखो, बांसुरी वादक कृष्ण भारतीय संस्कृति के केंद्र में रहे, जब क्वेश्चन पूछा स्टूडेंट से कि द फ्लूट प्लेइंग कृष्णा थीम इज वेरी पॉपुलर इन इंडियन आर्ट, तो बच्चों को समझ में नहीं आया कि भाई बांसुरी वादक कृष्ण भारतीय कला में बड़ा लोकप्रिय रहे हैं, पॉपुलर रहे हैं, इस पर विवेचन कीजिए। तो उनको समझ में नहीं आता था कि बांसुरी वादक कृष्ण का है तो इसमें मुझे क्या करना है, जो कहना है वो तो क्वेश्चन सेटर ने खुद बोल दिया, अब इसमें हमें क्या करना है उनको समझ में नहीं आ रहा था। हमने कहा कि यार उस पर थोड़ा सोचो, कोई ना कोई रास्ता तो निकल ही जाएगा। कोई भी क्वेश्चन ऐसा नहीं है, जैसे आज अब आप लोगों का है कि आप लोग बहुत हद तक थिंकिंग क्रिएचर हो रहे हो, तो अब कितना मजा है कि जो भी मैं प्रॉब्लम या चैलेंज देता हूं, आप लोग कुछ ना कुछ सोचकर रास्ता एमसीक्यू क्वेश्चन से निकाल ही लेते हो। तो मेंस वालों में भी निकालना आपने शुरू कर दिया होगा। जैसे अब बांसुरी वादक कृष्ण है तो क्या क्या नहीं है, आप इनको आर्किटेक्चर में दिखाइए कि हाँ जो आइडल है उसमें बांसुरी वादक कृष्ण के साथ राधा कितना पॉपुलर फॉर्म है। उसके बाद आप उसको स्कल्पचर में दिखाइए, मूर्ति कला में, टेम्पल में दिखाइए, टेम्पल कल्ट में, मूर्ति कला में दिखाइए, स्कल्पचर में दिखाइए, पेंटिंग्स में दिखाइए, म्यूजिक में दिखाइए, डांस में दिखाइए। इतने फॉर्म में दिखा देंगे और दिखा देंगे कि इंडियन कल्चर के केंद्र में, जैसे अब रामा कल्ट है तो रामा कल्ट कुड नेवर बिकम अ पॉपुलर कल्ट टू द एक्सटेंट वी फाइंड द कृष्णा कल्ट, बिकॉज इन रामा कल्ट रामा वॉज अ वेरी सीरियस कैरेक्टर इन इंडियन कल्चर, you know. So he didn't become the matter of the popular, you can say, it was a matter of devotion, but not the matter of love, as you find in case of Krishna. So Krishna was going to occupy the human consciousness more deeply than Lord Rama. So that was going to affect our culture. So here that has been answered. Both Rama and Krishna have been popular subjects in the folk tales of India, but Krishna has enjoyed greater popularity. This is because Krishna's bhakti, characterized by a sense of divine love, brings more joy and entertainment to the people compared to Ram's bhakti. Literature. The compositions of Rahim Kavi, which includes hymns about Chaitanya and Meera, as well as the enchanting figure of Murli Manohar Krishna. Murli Manohar Krishna, Murli means Basuri. Architecture, the cities of Mathura and Vrindavan in the North Bengal and along with numerous grand temples throughout India showcase the divine beauty of Murli Manohar Krishna's idols. Sculpture, virtually every skilled sculptor in India has created exquisite idols of Murli Manohar Krishna with their own hands. Paintings, Radha Krishna being the epitome of divine love, has been central to various painting styles, ranging from Rajput and Mughal paintings to the Kishangarh and Madhubani styles. All paintings, you know. So the Krishna and the flute playing Krishna is the very important figure. Dance art. The profound relationship of Radha and Krishna form the foundation of Kathak and Satriya dances, but their influence can also be observed in other dance styles. Music art. In the Hindustani or Carnatic style of music, numerous ragas have been developed based on the divine love and connection between Radha and Krishna. Okay. So that is over. Describe the contribution of Mirabai to the Indian Bhakti tradition. What is the contribution of Mirabai? A specific question, you know. Mirabai provided an alternative voice within the Bhakti movement, emphasizing women's identity, devotion, temples and saints were primarily associated with a male-dominated society. Mira's remarkable step of joining a group of male sannyasi challenged societal norms and was a revolutionary act. Despite coming from the royal Sisodia family, she voluntarily renounced worldly comforts and said, इसको देख लेना आप लोग, बहुत easy. This was questioned in 2018. The Bhakti movement received a remarkable reorientation with the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discuss 2018. So here I have dealt with this question. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu introduced a deeply emotional element to Bhakti and fostered closer ties with the Sufi order. He started the Sankirtan system, which transformed the Bhakti movement into a popular movement. Both Hindus and Muslims in Bengal were drawn towards the practice of Sankirtana. Chaitanya's influence extended to Muslim majority areas where he not only prevented conversions to Islam but also witnessed many Muslims converting to Hinduism under his influence. his impact was so significant that he came to be regarded as an incarnation of Krishna. He then sent his 6 Goswami saints to establish the foundation of bhakti in Vrindavan. Chaitanya firmly established Bengali culture in Bengal, which endured even after the partition of India. Pakistan could not escape the rich heritage of Bengali culture, leading to the eventual division of East Pakistan to form Bangladesh. मतलब यहाँ पर मैंने एक्सक्लूसिवली दिया कि चैतन्य ने इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग बंगाली कल्चर क्रिएट किया कि उसको पाकिस्तान भी बाइफर्केट नहीं कर सका. And Chaitanya's bhakti revolutionized Krishna bhakti to such an extent that it became a captivating force, not only for Indians across different regions but also for foreigners. The ISKCON temple stands as a vivid testament to this phenomenon. Vrindavan. Actually, even the Bhaktism of Vrindavan was promoted by whom? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you know. Okay. So, yes.
IUC question, sir, how to describe architecture in Bhaktism?
Saguna Bhakti, Ayushi Saguna Bhakti, because Saguna Bhakti you are just going to make this clear Rama and Krishna. So around Rama and Krishna cult, so many temples were built in all the styles, Nagara style, Darvira style, Vesara style. So you can very well justify you can say promotion of temple construction or the architecture along with Saguna Bhakti.
Bhavana question, sir, did in the women in Bhakti only led revolt against patriarchy, but not led reform steps for women themselves?
Yeah.
Bhavana question, did in the women in Bhakti only led revolt against patriarchy, but not led reform step for women themselves?
क्वेश्चन भावना का क्लियर नहीं है कुछ. आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू बी क्लियर. वंस अगेन रिपीट क्वेश्चन. भावना क्या है?
Did in the women in Bhakti only led revolt against patriarchy, but not led reform step for women themselves?
हाँ, भावना, you are to certain extent. So far I understand. You just try to prove that, and you try to ask that they simply make a revolt against patriarchy, but they didn't introduce any consistent and concerted effort for reforms in the condition of women at grassroots level. It is true.
Giri Kiran sir, please, that loving for Krishna Bhakti came from South Sangam literature.
South, to certain extent, even the South Sangam literature is having the contribution. You are correct. To certain extent, you know. But apart from that, there was the impact of Sufism as well. For example, on Chaitanya's Bhakti, it is supposed that in Chaitanya's Bhakti, Krishna Bhakti, there is the intensity of love that was akin to Sufism.
Ravindranath question. सर, भक्ति मूवमेंट के सभी सेंट्स के नाम याद रखना इम्पोर्टेंट है क्या?
प्रीलिम्स के लिए थोड़ा सा इम्पोर्टेंट कर लूँगा. रविन्द्रनाथ, फर्स्ट राउंड में आप मेंस के लिए पढ़ रहे हो. सेकेंड राउंड में मैं जब क्लास फिनिश करने लगूंगा तो आपको कुछ इंस्ट्रक्शन दे दूंगा. सेकेंड राउंड में कुछ तो भक्ति सेंट्स को प्रीलिम्स में ज़्यादा नाम याद रखना होगा. थोड़ा तो है प्रॉब्लम.
ओके सर.
मेंस में उतनी आवश्यकता नहीं.
क्वेश्चन है.
Yes.
दीपक करेंगे सर, प्लीज एक्सप्लेन द होमोजेनिटी ऑफ हिंदूज विद सूफी सेक्ट. Homogeneity of, don't talk about Hinduism, you can say. अब suppose you can say, here I am making you clear. Here is Hinduism. There is Islam. So even Hinduism, there was an orthodox trend. Orthodox trend. And even in Islam, there was orthodox trend. Orthodox trend. Okay. मतलब जो अनुदार धारा है वो हिंदुइज्म में भी इस्लाम में भी. इन ऑर्थोडॉक्स ट्रेंड इन हिंदुइज्म यू विल कम टू नो कि देयर वर सर्टेन
you can say Hindu thinkers and the social leaders, so they try to prove that कि Hinduism is basically Hinduism had to keep itself away from Islam. It should have to make itself safe from polluting impact of Islam. So it was just, you can say, these orthodox elements in Hinduism, they tried to reside within its own shell when getting threatened from an invading sect Islam. मतलब जो ऑर्थोडॉक्स ट्रेंड है हिंदुइज्म में, वो चाहते हैं जैसे घोंगे अपने ही शेल में बंद हो जाते हैं, उसी तरह से हमको अपने बंद होकर सुरक्षित करना चाहिए ताकि इस्लाम के प्रभाव से हम बचे रहें. लेकिन इसी में जो लिबरल ट्रेंड है, वो लिबरल ट्रेंड है भक्तिज्म. एंड भक्तिज्म में भी दो सबसेक्ट है एग्जैक्टली, एक निर्गुणा एंड सगुणा. निर्गुणा तो बहुत लिबरल को डिनाई करता है. The Nirguna Bhakti is just rejecting the caste division, the caste system. It also worked as a bridge between Hinduism and Islam. Nirguna Bhakti, Kabir and Nanak. Kabir and Nanak try to prove that if the Ishwar and Allah are one and the same, how their followers like Hindus and Muslims are going to be different. Out of the scriptures, as he was not. So it is, friends, we people are the wise and intelligent enough, but you are too much burdened with the work. I can very well surmise. Difficult for me to recommend you what to read or not to read. Have some time. I will recommend you to go through the one Sufism. Also, class 12th. You will have the time, because I think presently you people are too much busy, but whenever you will have the time you can. So that was a liberal trend, and that is in the form of Bhaktism. Likewise in Islam there was an orthodox trend. So orthodox trend was giving the slogan to convert Hindustan from Darul Harb to Darul Islam. मतलब कुछ इस तरह के कंजर्वेटिव ट्रेंड है जो कहते हैं कि इस्लाम में जबरन धर्मांतरण करवाओ और मूर्ति पूजकों के देश को इस्लाम का देश बनाओ, टू कन्वर्ट इंडिया फ्रॉम दारुल हर्ब इनटू दारुल इस्लाम. सो देयर वाज द वन ट्रेंड, एंड द सेकेंड वन ट्रेंड इज द लिबरल ट्रेंड, दैट इज सूफिज्म. सूफिज्म. अब भक्ति और सूफिज्म, निर्गुणा भक्ति, यस, यहां से in Nirguna Bhakti and Sufism, you will find normally in Nirguna Bhakti and Sufism you have to find it out, So दोनों में, निर्गुणा भक्ति में सूफिज्म में एक कॉमन पॉइंट है, एंड जो कॉमन पॉइंट है वो ये है कि दोनों गॉड को शेपलेस फॉर्म में वर्शिप करते हैं. किस फॉर्म में? शेपलेस, निराकार. दैट इज द वन ट्रेंड. सेकेंड वन, यू कैन से कि बोथ वी आर हैविंग द इंटेंस लव फॉर गॉड. यू विल फाइंड अ कॉमन पॉइंट, मिस्टिसिज्म, बिकॉज बोथ निर्गुणा भक्ति एंड सूफिज्म both are having intensity of love for a shapeless God. So it is from here you can say mysticism appears. So that is the common point between the two. And both were opposed the caste division. Both were opposed to religious orthodoxy. So they were having so many common points, So I'll discuss with you. So let us start Sufism now. And you will observe Sufism, you will come to realize that Sufism has originated, the term Sufism has originated the term Safa. Safa was having different connotation. One meaning of Safa is sacred, pavitra. Second meaning of Safa is कि the cloths made of blanket. Now can you say कि Sufi was wearing the cloth that was made of blanket? It was just irritating to the body because you can say blanket is having, you can say, the camel wool, and this camel wool was irritating to the skin, but they were consciously wearing the blanket, the cloth made of blanket, so that they could reflect the reaction against the comforts of life, the common comforts of life. So they were just reflecting their reaction against the common comforts of life. And third meaning of Safa is that possibly it has originated from Sufa. What is temperature? 26. It has possibly originated from Sufa. What is Sufa? It is believed that when Prophet Muhammad, he built a mosque at Makkah. So normally the people were going into mosque, but a group of saints were who didn't enter into mosque, but rather they preferred to sit on a you can say platform like construction was there. So they are sitting on the platform and they were silent people. They maintained complete silence. They are speaking nothing, but they were involved into meditation. So these saints were involved into meditation, and on the platform they were sitting. So that was known as Sufa. So it is from Sufa there originated Safa. मतलब मैंने आपको बताया कि एक मीनिंग तो हो जाता है सफा का पवित्र, दूसरा मीनिंग होता है कि कंबल से बना हुआ वस्त्र जो सूफी धारण करते थे, वो शरीर में चुभता था, लगता है कि जीवन के आराम के विरुद्ध प्रतिक्रिया दिखा रहे थे। और तीसरा था कि जब पैगंबर मोहम्मद ने जो अपने मस्जिद बनाई, तो कुछ संत थे जो मस्जिद के अंदर नहीं जाते थे, बाहर एक प्लेटफॉर्म पर बैठते थे, और जो प्लेटफॉर्म पर बैठते थे उस प्लेटफॉर्म को ही संभवतः सूफा कहा जाता था, और वो सूफा से ही सूफी आया है। तो डिफरेंट मीनिंग्स है। अब मैं इसमें बताना चाहता हूं कि इस्लाम में सूफिज्म का जो बेसिस है वो भी है होली कुरान। तो कुरान की दो व्याख्याएं, कुरान की एक व्याख्या है दैट इज कॉल्ड द ऑर्थोडॉक्स इंटरप्रिटेशन, ऑर्थोडॉक्स इंटरप्रिटेशन ऑफ कुरान। तो ऑर्थोडॉक्स इंटरप्रिटेशन को कहते हैं मुस्लिम शरीयत, मुस्लिम शरीयत। और दूसरा है उसको कहते हैं लिबरल इंटरप्रिटेशन। तो लिबरल इंटरप्रिटेशन को कहते हैं मुस्लिम तरीकत, मुस्लिम तरीकत। So in one sense, tariqat is the basis of Islam. Just 1 minute. जैसे here I have to inform you कि actually one interpretation of Holy Quran is Muslim Shariat. So that is the orthodox interpretation. And another interpretation is the liberal interpretation, that is called Muslim Tariqah. So in one sense, Sufism is the basis of Sufism in Muslim Tariqat. That was called Muslim Tariqat. So you people have to keep in your mind that Sufism is basically the liberal interpretation, that is called Muslim Tariqat. So now my friends, you are informed that Sufism is supposed to have taken ideological borrowings from the different sects and different, you can say, philosophical schools. For example, they have taken from monastic philosophy of India, because at the time of Kushanaj, monastic philosophy in the form of Mayan Buddhism, so that what spread to West Asia and Central Asia. So at the time of its rise, Islam might have come in contact with this monastic philosophy of India. So it was influenced by the monastic philosophy of India, and then you can say even Neoplatonism of Europe, Zoroastrianism of West Asia. So all might have some influence over Sufism. But my friends, what is the origin of Sufism? So Sufism emerged in nearly 10th century, and its breeding ground is Iraq and some part of Iran, mainly Iraq and some part of Iran. You might have heard of Basra in Iraq. So it was the breeding ground of Sufism, And here I have to inform you that in 10th century is a phase of transition in the history of Islam. Why? It was in 10th century, in political history I have informed you कि जो 10वीं सदी है उसी में मैंने राजनीतिक इतिहास में आपको सूचना दी थी कि in 10th century on the one hand there was the decline of Islamic Caliphate and the rise of Sultan, and it was during this period you can say कि particularly under the Caliph of Baghdad there was the creation of a vast empire. So now Islamic empire became too much resourceful. It started to use the resources from different regions. So in this new generation of Muslims, the luxuries of life and comforts of life became the main attraction. So in one sense there was the rise of thinkers who were known as Sufi. So they reacted against the luxuries and comforts of life and then tried to bring Islam in its simplest form. And they talked about the selfless life, which should be the basic essence of a Muslim life. मतलब मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि 10th सेंचुरी का जो इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड है उसमें एक तरफ इस्लामिक कैलिफेट का डिक्लाइन हो रहा है, दूसरी तरफ सुल्तान का जो पोस्ट है, सल्तनत है, उसका इमरजेंस हो रहा है. तो कुछ उस समय जो बहुत सारे जो काफी रिसोर्सफुल अब एम्पायर हो गया है, तो बहुत सारे जो न्यू जनरेशन ऑफ मुस्लिम्स हैं उनको लग्जरीज और कंफर्ट्स के प्रति आकर्षण बढ़ रहा है. तो एक ग्रुप ऑफ थिंकर्स इमर्ज्ड, सो दे जस्ट ट्राई टू reflect their reaction against the comforts and luxuries of life. So they were known as Sufi. अब मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा, ये सब क्वेश्चन के फॉर्म में नहीं आएगा लेकिन बैकग्राउंड जानना चाहिए आपको. अब मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा कि व्हाट इज द पॉइंट ऑफ डिफरेंस बिटवीन सूफिज्म एंड ऑर्थोडॉक्स मुस्लिम, ऑर्थोडॉक्स इस्लाम. तो नाउ यू विल कम टू नो कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिटवीन Sufism and Orthodox Islam. Orthodox Islam. What is the point of conflict? One point of conflict was faith versus religion. Faith versus religion. Okay? And relationship between God and man. So there were 2 points of differences, between the Orthodox Islam and Sufism. Actually, according to Orthodox Islam, we can understand Allah or understand the Supreme God through faith. But Sufism started to talk in terms of mutazil. Mutazil means region. You find here the term in Sufism, there is the term mutazil, region. They just try to reason out the things. They try to define the relationship between man and God through region. So it was intolerable for Orthodox Islam, which believes in the cult of faith. तो फेथ और रीजन का फर्क तो आप लोग समझते होंगे. तो फेथ और रीजन की टकराहट है. दूसरा है कि बेसिकली ऑर्थोडॉक्स इस्लाम ट्राइड टू एस्टैब्लिश दैट द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन मैन एंड गॉड इज जस्ट लाइक द मास्टर एंड द स्लेव. अल्लाह एवं उसके बंदे. अल्लाह मास्टर है और हम उनके बंदे दास की तरह. बट सूफिज्म जस्ट ट्राई टू डिक्लेयर दैट कि the relationship between this supreme soul and this jiva and man is just like the lover and beloved. They try to develop a human relationship between God and man. So that was intolerable for Orthodox Islam. Orthodox Islam could not tolerate this. So that's why you can say in 10th century, there was a Sufi saint. His name was Mansur bin Hallaj. So Mansur bin Hallaj was hanged to death. Why? Because he declared Anhalak, मैं वो हूं, माने I am he. So मैं वो हूं, Anhalak. So he was given the death sentence. So it was in 12th century, there emerged a Sufi saint. His name was Al-Ghazali. So it was Al-Ghazali who made Sufism acceptable to Islamic world. Why and how? So he tried to bring a compromise between Sufism and Orthodox Islam through professing new ideology. According to him, Allah and his merits can be perceived not through mutajil, not through reasoning, but through self-light. Self-light means faith. मतलब उसने घोषित किया, अल गज़ाली ने 12th सेंचुरी का एक्सेंट था कि अल्लाह और उनके गुणों का ज्ञान आस्था से नहीं बल्कि आत्म प्रकाश से संभव है. आत्म प्रकाश का मतलब है फेथ, विश्वास. तो फेथ को उसने रिस्टोर कर दिया. तो उससे क्या हुआ कि ऑर्थोडॉक्स इस्लाम अब सूफिज्म के प्रति नरम पड़ गया और इस्लामिक वर्ल्ड में सूफिज्म को एक्सेप्टेंस मिल गया. तो सूफिज्म के भी दो ग्रुप्स ऑफ टू डिफरेंट सबसेक्ट्स हुए. कुछ सबसेक्ट्स ऐसे थे जो मुस्लिम शरीयत को मानकर चलते थे. तो दोज हु आर गोइंग टू फॉलो द रूल्स ऑफ शरीयत, दे वर कॉल्ड बाशरा. एंड दोज हु डिडंट फॉलो द रूल्स ऑफ शरीयत, सो दे वर कॉल्ड बेशरा. मतलब उनको बेशरा कहा जाता था. तो यही सूफिज्म का ओरिजिन है. अब नाउ द क्वेश्चन एराइजेज कि व्हाई डिड सूफिज्म ट्रैवल टुवर्ड्स इंडिया. तो व्हाई डिड सूफिज्म यू कैन से ट्रैवल टुवर्ड्स इंडिया. सो हियर आई हैव टू मेक यू क्लियर कि इन फैक्ट द वन फैक्टर इज कि इंडिया इज सच ए कंट्री व्हिच कुड नॉट बी, where the massive conversion was not possible through sword. The theory of sword is not applicable here because here the Hindus are majority and Muslims were just minority, according to the words of Junaidi, the prime minister of Iltutmish, कि the proportion of Muslims in Hindustan is just like salt in the vegetable. So as Muslims are the few and far between in number and Hindus were majority, so there the rules of, and you can say theory of, or the method of sword was not effective. So here the Sufi saints might have been more effective in carrying conversions in India. So that's why a large number of Sufi saints started to move towards India. This was the one factor. Second one factor was in the Islamic world there was Mongolian invasions. So Mongols just, you can say, fell on the Islamic world just like a calamity, a big calamity. So due to Mongolian invasions, a large number of Sufi saints were moved towards India, So they moved towards India. So this was the reason behind that. So who were the Sufi saints who came to India? So as they are asking you who was the first Sufi saint who came to India, so you will find here the name. The first Sufi saint who came to India was at the time of Mahmud Ghazni, invasion of Mahmud Ghazni. So their name was the first Sufi saint who came to India at the time of Mahmud Ghazni was Al-Huzuri. And his name was Data Ganj Baks. sorry, Data Ganj Baks. His name was Al-Hujuri or Data Ganj Baks. Then at the time of the invasion of Muhammad Ghori, it was Sheikh Muinuddin Chishti, who was the founder of Chishti sect in India. So he came to India. One thing you have to keep in your mind from prelims point of view, Al-Hujuri, there was a very famous text of Al-Hujuri. Sorry. The name of the text is Kasf ul Mahjub. The famous text of Al-Hujuri was Kasf ul Mahjub. So very famous text of his, he had just composed the famous text, his name of the text was Kasf ul Mahjub. And Sheikh Muinuddin Chishti came to India at the time of the invasion of Muhammad Ghori, and he built his Khanqah at Ajmer Sharif today, you know. So it became the seat of the, here he built his Dargah at Ajmer. So Ajmer became the center of Chishti sect, you know. And then the disciple of this Sheikh Muinuddin Chishti was Fariduddin Ganj Shakar. So Fariduddin Ganj Shakar, Chishti sect was most popular in India, you know. Fariduddin Ganj Shakar, that was a very important Chishti sect, you know. And Fariduddin, he made his Khanqah means ki hospice. Hospice means where the Sufi saints along with his disciples, they were living, so they were known as hospice or Khanqah. So Fariduddin just built their Khanqah at Ajodhan in presently Pakistan. It unfortunately became a prey to the terrorist attack there, because the Islamic fundamentalists could not tolerate this very liberal Sufi shrine of Ajodhan. It was burned to fire, you know, and blown out. But here, you know, next one. But two important Sufi saints in Delhi one was Nijamuddin Auliya. Today even in Delhi, Nijamuddin you find. And the second one is Nasiruddin Chirage Dehlavi. Even Chirage Dehlavi is the famous place in Delhi, presently on his name. So two saints, Nijamuddin Auliya and Nasiruddin Chirage Dehlavi, they were the very famous Sufi saints in India. Nijamuddin Auliya manifested the period of 7 sultans, and you know, he was the spiritual teacher of Amir Khusro as well. What was the reason behind the popularity of Sufi saints in India? The Sufi saints used to mix with the common people very friendly, and common people very, you can say, openly, and they were leading a very simple life, just like a fakir, you can say. They completely dissociated themselves from the royal family and the ruling class. There is some hearsay, you can say, although it is historically proved. Once Alauddin Khalji made an approach to Nijamuddin Auliya via and through the agency of Amir Khusro, because Amir Khusro was his disciple. So he requested Amir Khusro to take an appointment from Nijamuddin Auliya. So Amir Khusro approached Nijamuddin Auliya and requested him a meeting with Alauddin Khalji. When Alauddin Khalji is just likely to come to your door to visit your place and to see you. So Nijamuddin Auliya simply replied, in my house there are 2 doors. So if Sultan will enter into one door, I will come out from the other. तो आप समझ सकते हो कि कितना एवर्स था रूलिंग क्लास से. So this was the reason, one of the reasons, you know, and they were living in the common people. About Nijamuddin Auliya, it is said that he was a practicing yogi. He was in, you can say, in deep relations with a Nathpanthi yogi. So even this Nathpanthi yogi preferred to call him a Siddh. So this was the most popular. Second one, you can say, you might have heard about Suhravardi. Another important sect was Suhravardi sect. And who was the founder in India? Bahauddin Zakaria. Bahauddin Zakaria was the founder. But my students, this was not leading, the Suhravardi sect didn't prefer to lead a very saintly life. They were in touch with the ruling class as well, and they used to take the political post as well. मतलब जो सुहरावर्दी सेक्ट के सेंट्स होते थे वो सूफी की तरह कोई रूलिंग क्लास से परहेज नहीं करते थे, बहुत सिंपल लाइफ नहीं जीते थे, वो बहुत एक लग्जरियस लाइफ भी जीते थे और रूलिंग पॉलिटिकल पोस्ट को भी, मतलब कोई एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव पोस्ट उनको मिलता था उसको भी अडॉप्ट करते थे. तो सूफी सुहरावर्दी. उसके बाद यू विल फाइंड सो मेनी सेक्ट्स, यू कैन से. अब यू कैन से वन इज सत्तारी. Sattari was Muhammad Ghaus. Muhammad Ghaus, he was from Gwalior. He was the founder of Sattari. He was important saint from Sattari sect. So कहा जाता है उनके बारे में कि he was a great musician, you know, great musician, and he was the even teacher of Tansen. He was the teacher of Tansen, you know, Tansen. And he was teacher of Tansen, you know, and he was himself a great singer of his time. Then you can say Firdausi was another silsila, you can say Firdausi. Then Qadiri. Dara Shikoh and Jahan Ara Begum were associated with Qadiri, you know. Kalandariya, you come to know about even Naqshbandi sect. Here you can see Sheikh Ahmad Sarhindi was associated with this sect, and he was a contemporary to Jahangir. But Naqshbandi sect was a very orthodox sect, and Jahangir became so much offended at his orthodox behavior and orthodox ideology that he even for some time put him into the jail. Naqshbandi. This was, you know, Sheikh Ahmad Sarhindi in India, you know. So many sects were. This Abul Fazl informs us that in 16th century there were 14 Sufi silsila. Silsila means Sufi subsects. 14 Sufi subsects, you know. So this is all about, you can say, the different Sufism branch. Now I have to discuss about Sufi ideas. Sufi ideas. I would like to inform you that Sufi ideas. Ab Sufi, they believes in the intensity of love. What was the specific ideology of Sufi? That through activating Sufi ideas, that through activating qalb, qalb, to make soul free. मतलब ये हिंदी में बता देता हूं तो समझ में आएगा. जैसे उनका ये कहना था कि कल्ब की साधना के द्वारा रूह कहते हैं आत्मा, रूह बोलते हैं आत्मा को, कल्ब की साधना के द्वारा रूह को मुक्त करना. मतलब वो कहते हैं कि प्रेम की तीव्रता, कल्ब माने हृदय प्रेम का स्थल है, तो हृदय की तीव्रता के द्वारा रूह को मुक्त करना. अब जैसे एक क्वेश्चन किसी बच्चे ने पूछा था कि जो निर्गुण सेंट्स है, सूफी है, उसमें क्या पॉइंट ऑफ डिफरेंस है, यू नो. तो पॉइंट ऑफ डिफरेंस दोनों में यह है कि जो निर्गुण संत है वो भी जो गॉड है, सेपलेस गॉड है, जैसे कबीर है, नानक है, दे आर हैविंग द इंटेंस लव फॉर सेपलेस गॉड, बट दे आर जस्ट actually they are giving the identity to God just like a lover and soul to beloved. मतलब वो गॉड को ही लवर और सोल को, मतलब गॉड को प्रियतम और सोल को प्रियतमा का दर्जा देते हैं. सूफी भी ह्यूमन रिलेशंस में गॉड और सोल को बांधता है, परंतु वो गॉड को बिलवेड और सोल को लवर का आइडेंटिटी देता है। तो दिस इज द पॉइंट ऑफ डिफरेंस बिटवीन द टू, यू नो। एंड दोनों में इंटेंसिटी है, लेकिन सूफियों में लव की इंटेंसिटी और भी ज्यादा है निर्गुणा भक्ति से। तो आज तो मेरा टाइम ओवर हो गया। आई विल कंटिन्यू, इट विल नॉट टेक टाइम, इट विल टेक 20-25 मिनट्स मोर Sufism, then I will discuss 1 and 2 question, and then you can say I have to move further. Tomorrow I will send you, Mr. Ankur, a study material on language and literature first. Language and literature. So religion, after finishing language literature, I will tomorrow discuss, and then I will move to art and architecture, paintings, music, etc. So in this way we have to move. So today I am stopping here, my students. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow.